Greetings, everyone. I'm excited to welcome Eric Boduch, founder at Revcast. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ben. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about your background.
So, as you can see, if you can see the video, I'm a little older than I think. I started doing SaaS like back in the early days of Salesforce. So, with a brief interlude where I went and worked on the marketing side, a little bit of product, mostly marketing at some public companies that were still client server, and then mostly back to SaaS. So most of my, adult career has been in the SaaS space and really early in the model. Back when people still weren't entirely sure if SaaS was the right model. I remember sitting down with some CFOs early and they're like, well, I'm going to show you why SaaS is a bad model. And you should look at the, license maintenance model that, had pre-existed SaaS. Yeah, I still remember some of those conversations. It's crazy how much things have changed.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I still remember my one of my assignments from a GM and said, "Hey Ben, sit down and create some subscription pricing for our on-premise product." Back in the early 2000s. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's come. So career sound like in the tech world, in the software world, back in the old, perpetual license days, then ASP and then now
Yeah, it
SaaS.
started really right in that changing period, right? When, Salesforce was the no software company, right? And my education, Carnegie Mellon, shout out to the Tartans out there, was engineering. So writing code. So came at it from a deeply technical background, but then spend most of my, career in product and marketing, primarily marketing with a large smattering of product at companies like Pendo and others.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Love that. That's great. So, yeah, let's talk about your current project, your current company, Revcast. Tell us a little bit about the products and services that Revcast offers.
Sure, sure. Revcast is a predictive solution for revenue planning and achievement. So what we do is we empower people to develop and continuously optimize a more efficient and accurate go-to-market plan. So we provide them with risk and opportunity insights around capacity. I mean that from every sense of the term, like everything from sales capacity to hiring capacity to pipeline capacity, all those constraints you have that really inform what your model looks like. So we give them a more complete understanding of their current performance and adjustments they need to maximize their revenue achievement. That was a lot. So if I was going to shorten it, I would say, in short, we help you build a revenue organization that optimizes dollars to generate more pipeline, to sell more deals, to crush your number, to be that next big success story.
Yeah, I love that, especially as a CFO working with the VP of sales or the CRO all the time to update that forecast. It's like, all right, what's the commit number, right? What's the commit number for the quarter, for the year? Are we still good? What's the data behind it? So diving into that. And so love that. So do you, tell us a little bit about your ICP. Are you going after any industry with sales teams, specific types of companies to target your product?
Yeah, I mean, the long term, if you have a sales organization, we feel like, you need to do a better job building, managing, and optimizing your revenue organization. We can help you do that. In the short term, we look at, 0 to 250, 500, sales reps. Tech tends to be an early adopter. So I think you'll see us looking at tech, predominantly, but then expanding into the other markets, especially with, companies that value a more data-driven, methodical approach to their business.
Mhm. And do you see, and this can be sometimes squishy, do you see any sort of threshold as far as sales teams where what is there that tipping point where it just gets so complex or just more complex where is it five sales reps, 10 sales reps, 20? Do you see any sort of tipping point where they just need more help in this process?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're looking at 15 to 20 reps, you start seeing the need for a Rev Ops leader. And then that Rev Ops, this software empowers that Rev Ops leader. Interestingly, a couple of our early customers have come from the smaller end of that and a little bit of a different reason. It's less about complexity. It's more about the sales leader having agency and being able to understand like the assumptions and risks in his model. Like, oh, I have to hire this many people, or I have to keep attrition this, at this level, or I have to, we have to get 75% attainment on our quota on the street. So it gives them better understanding of where there's risks in their model, what assumptions they've made, and having visibility into those. Because, otherwise they're getting them from finance, which is great, getting them from people like you, but they don't always understand where their risks are when they don't have the agency in building that. And they rely on, finance or sometimes, and the CEO to say, okay, here's your target and here's your hiring plan. We often see sometimes those things don't line up on the early stage companies, especially if they don't have a really sophisticated finance person, they don't have a Rev Ops person. Maybe it's this VP of sales, first VP of sales job. And so there's a misalignment, we say. From a complexity standpoint, it ends up being, are you 20 plus,
Mhm.
salespeople, AEs, 15 to 20, I would say is the range. And then our software helps you take like a 40 tab spreadsheet and tame it and give you the ability to just react a lot faster to changes in the marketplace, as we've seen over the last, couple of years. Like, what do you do when, your small business team is struggling, but your enterprise team is doing well? How quickly can you see that and adjust? Because if you can move those resources around, even if it's marketing pipeline resources or it's upcoming hires or, what have you, it could mean a couple $1 million to your top line for a 50 to $100 million company. And then you ratchet that forward to valuation. And then that's like, oh, at an 8x multiple, $2 million is $16 million of top line valuation. I mean, it's real money.
Yeah.
So if we can help people achieve more, which we can, there's a huge amount of value to building structure, best practice, and systems around the revenue process.
Yeah, I love that because I know I was on your website and saw the annual planning, which right now it's like the heart of budget season. All those FP&A teams working on their plans for 2024,
Yeah.
and a big piece of that is for our leaders and at least SaaS companies, we have to know that bookings and revenue plan. That drives the resources, the people that we need, and what are we trying to shoot for? So that key component to the planning process.
Yeah, and balancing that with like, okay, what do we need for pipeline contribution from the BDR, SDR team or the marketing team? And then if you can't get to that, like we show coverage ratios. If you can't get to those coverage ratios, then maybe that means you spend less on sales. And then that brings your cost down. So it's like this whole optimization balancing act that you should go through. And what we find is that most people have something out of alignment. They have too much sales capacity, like people had when the market changed, or they're not spending enough to generate top line pipeline. So the salespeople aren't getting fed, or they've cut costs down to the point where we have too many salespeople to deliver the pipeline we need. So it's this balance to make sure that you're spending money on the short end of the pole, so to speak, to bring it up to parity with your other capabilities.
I love that because I know when I'm forecasting financial statements, right, there's got to be balance. There's just, in a cohesive plan and same thing, you're right, with the pipeline, same thing, the balance in that pipeline. And so I assume you're targeting VP of sales, CROs. What persona are you going after when you're trying to prospect?
Yeah, our entry point tends to be, assuming it's a larger company, that 20 to 500 AEs or 250 AEs, going in and targeting that head of Rev Ops. But really, we're going after more broadly whoever's in charge of managing the revenue plan and not just creating it, because that's a one-time action, but it's the person that's in charge of making sure that they're hitting it and optimizing changes to it throughout the year. And then trying to instill in them this idea of agility, right? How do we help you adjust your plan on a monthly, weekly basis so that you're more likely to hit your number? And what's held us back in the past from doing that is just there's not the systems in place to give the visibility you need and to give the advice you need and to bring risks to the forefront so that you can make more rapid adjustments. And you tend to wait to, a quarterly business review, to make adjustments for data that came up, maybe 60 days ago. So, you don't talk about it for 60 days. And then by the time you make a change, it's another 30 days or at least 15 to 30. And there's the scheduling time of getting the QBR set up. So yeah, you're at 60 to 90 days before you're making changes. So we hope to bring more of that agility to what do you do when the world punches you in the face, right? How do you adjust to that? Everybody's got a plan until they're punched in the face.
Right? Yeah.
Little
And
Mike
so
Tyson.
Mike Tyson, yeah. So one last product question, data. So I assume you're integrating into CRM systems, into Salesforce, HubSpot. Is it primarily CRM data that you're pulling into your application?
Yeah, we're looking at CRM data primarily. We also will integrate pipeline data, ideally, via Salesforce or HubSpot, but we could get that from other sources too. A lot of the pipeline products will push it to Salesforce, so it's quick and easy if we can get it from one place, and that makes setup near instantaneous. So.
And how often do you find when they integrate to Salesforce CRM, whatever CRM it is, that they just have poor data hygiene, poor structure in their opportunities? Is that a common thing where they've kind of have to clean up their CRM framework before they can make effective use of Revcast?
In our case, more rarely because we're
Okay.
looking at things that are common, like, deals, whether they're closed won. So there are generally some they could be located, not to get super technical, in like custom objects, but it's rare that the closed won data in Salesforce and the deal data in Salesforce has bad hygiene because that's what they're running their business off of. So there tends to be a lot of bad hygiene in things like contact information and accounts and old stuff that is in the system and never got removed. But people tend to keep their deal data pretty clean. So as long as that's clean, the deal data, and that's the stuff we want, like deal state, deal size, when the deal was closed. As long as that data is clean, which it generally is, we don't have as many issues as other companies might have.
Yeah, makes sense. You got to report that deal data to the board. You got to pay commissions. All that stuff has to be accurate. So, and then tell what year did they found Revcast?
2022.
2022. Okay, so around a year or two. And then, do you have a
Yeah,
location? Are
we're
you
we're
remote?
really a year in.
Year. Yeah.
It's been pretty quick. Depending on how you think of it, a little over a year, but yeah.
Yeah. Really quick. And then, do you have a location? Are you virtual?
Headquartered here in Raleigh, North Carolina, but really distributed workforce. I would say about half of our team is here. Our whole engineering team is here. But, beyond that distributed, we have a couple of people in Austin, as it turns out, Florida, Charleston, Baton Rouge now.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Common today. And then, what's your current team size?
A dozen people, two contractors, heavy on the product engineering design side.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And anything you want to share around ARR or revenue range?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. We just started selling, so we're on the low end of that range. You can think of us in that 0 to 100K range. Now,
Okay.
I hope to be a lot larger when, if we talk again next year this time, I hope I can, 10, 20x our current number, maybe even more. But we're on the low side of the range. We literally just signed our first customers.
Oh, congrats. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
just, yeah, early on the revenue side. And
Super early.
yeah. And, and tell us about your go-to-market motion, right? You're selling into Rev Ops leaders, into that sales team, but tell us how are you finding customers?
That's a good question. How are we finding customers? That's a bad answer to that good question. We find customers in, the ways you would think our customers probably find them. It's just a lot of hard work, grit and grind in the early days, right? So we're at the point of that, 0 to 1 million, that first million, right? So a lot of it is going out and leveraging network. It's testing early marketing channels. We have a head of marketing. We are doing traditional digital marketing work. So doing things like, social outreach, doing things like Google AdWords and some advertising, doing work on LinkedIn. So there's a mix of like traditional and some guerrilla marketing. And we've feathered in some events. Like we did the OpStars event with Lean Data out at the Dreamforce show. So that was great. In fact, we had our Rev Ops expert, Jeff Serlin, was part of the keynote for that. So we do have, one of the things that works for us is because we have really deep expertise in the space from people like Jeff, who've been, he ran Rev Ops at Intercom, at Marketo, at Pendo most recently before joining us. So we have a lot of credibility there. So that helps us open some of those early stage doors. So when you're thinking about that first $1 million, a lot of those early meetings, a lot of that go to market is really set up on our credibility, our deep understanding of the space and the value we can add. And we're starting to spend a lot more time building out community too. Like how can we, get more and more people to um, understand, what modern RevOps means, right? And just raise the strength of the craft, I think is a good way. I think I could have said that better, but I think you get the understanding of what I'm
Yep.
trying to say. Like, how can we raise the level of the revenue operations, leaders, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, makes a ton of
And then we'll
sense.
do it. We're going to launch a podcast. I did a
Uh,
podcast called Product Love for Pendo. We're looking at doing one for Rev Ops with Revcast, specifically, helping people think about like, well, how should I run QBRs, right? So that they're more productive, or what does an annual planning cycle look like? Or what's best practices for, weekly forecast meetings. So we'll be launching that at the beginning of next year, probably January.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. I look forward to that one. Yeah, because one of the areas I spend a lot of time, if it's not in finance, and sales and marketing and understanding, what's happening in those orgs. So yeah, that's great. And
Yeah,
then
no, I
switch
mean,
over.
we have a lot of finance people that are now using our software in conjunction with sales too. So it's interesting to see that, that conversation transparently taking place. Like, oh, I was looking at your enterprise group and I see where you said quotas are, 20% higher than last year. What's the justification for us thinking we're going to be able to do that? Or, I saw that our SMB team is ramping a lot quicker than we thought after launching in Europe. Shouldn't we adjust that in our planning for next year? Conversations like that going back and forth with the head of sales and the head of finance using a SaaS system as the mechanism for having those discussions is really empowering to see.
Oh, absolutely. I think CFOs and finance, right? We spend a lot of time understanding what's going on in sales and marketing. What are those metrics, benchmarks that they're looking at that pipeline? Also, sometimes we're asked to, hey, go vet the pipeline. Does it look reasonable? Yeah, get your eyes on it in addition to sales. So a lot of coordination that happens there. And then, switching over to the capital and the fundraising front, tell us how much capital you've raised to date.
3.1 million in
Okay.
an early round, our
Okay.
first capital raise.
Okay. Yeah, it looked like you had about 3 million seed round. And then
Yep.
tell us, for the other founders out there who starting their company, developing that MVP, what were the triggers or milestones that led you to that let's just call it a seed round raise?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we had an exciting space. So we had some VCs that we had just talked to with the early idea that were really excited about it. We actually weren't looking to raise. CRV through Caitlin, came in early and was like, "Well, what do you think about doing a round?" Was definitely, nice.
Yeah.
So we were fortunate that we had a marketplace that people found exciting. We had a pretty strong early MVP. We'd done quite a bit of due diligence before we started this company, right? I had exposure to this problem through Pendo. I had been talking with Jeff after he left Pendo as an advisor about like, should we build something in this space? We did 28, I think the final count was like in-depth interviews with VPs of finance, CROs, heads of Rev Ops. We surveyed another 150 or so people. So we really put, 3+ months, pretty heavy due diligence before we started this, along with having some really strong, experts as advisors, people like Jeff. And then we had Franco from Lean Data join us as an advisor. So like that helped us build the credibility that we really knew the space and combine that with some early, MVPs that we could actually show them how it would work. That enables us to raise, really early. I mean, we were pre-beta, right? When we were raising, we were just getting ready to roll out our beta when we did the round.
Okay, and I was going to ask about that. It's always interesting to see where the product progression is or maturity at that raise date. So pre-beta. So was it just a very early release, maybe getting it into the hands of a couple folks to test it out?
It was even before that. So.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then, for other founders who are thinking about that seed round and, should I do it? How should I prepare? Any lessons learned in that $3 million raise?
I think in general, you want to establish credibility with investors. So think about how you're doing that. Do you really know the space? Can you attract great talent? Can you build a sound plan? I mean, I think building the right revenue plan and managing the achievement of that plan, is an important part of that. So if you've if you have credibility, and that's one of the reasons we started Revcast on that side, like, hey, here's our plan, here's how we get there, here's all of our assumptions, this is what we need to do to make it happen. This is what it costs as far as salespeople, as far as pipeline to drive that. This is how we're going to hire. This is the attrition we expect because you're not going to make all of the right hires, especially on the sales and revenue side. So the more you can build credibility that you've thought through all of that model, along with being really deep and knowing the space, builds a lot of that credibility. It builds their like trust in you. I mean, really, you want them to think of you as a bet they want to make. And if you can couple that with a past experience, depending on who you are of achievement in past companies, not necessarily as a startup or as a CEO, but just a history of achievement, that helps a lot to make them want to bet on you, the team, the opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that insight. And Eric, at this stage of your company's journey, do you have a favorite number or metric that you're focused on to help guide the business?
For Revcast in particular, I
Yep.
mean, I think, we look at engagement and ARR. I mean, ARR is a great indicator, you know, as as you're starting to grow the company of other problems, right? I mean, it's not ARR. When you think of ARR as a metric, I'm not just talking about like, do the salespeople sell, but you know, in our case, I mean, ARR could be hindered more by like, have we built enough product yet to satisfy this particular customer's needs, right? There's a lot of things that impact that. Are we driving enough pipeline, enough leads, enough demos? So like ARR revenue, ends up becoming a very good indicator of early success. Like, can you get from that zero to that $1 million mark? Because it's not just about sales. In fact, it's probably less about sales than other things. It's all the different components of the business. Have you built something and people really value? Do you market it in a way that people want you to sell it to them? And then, can you sell it? And then once you do sell it, can you actually get them up and running and deliver on what you said you can do? So, I mean, I think in the early days, and in a lot of cases, and companies in general, ARR is a good indicator, of the health of a company. It's a
Yeah.
little more complicated as companies grow, but if you're selling $1 million+ of something and doing it efficiently, you probably have a good business, or at least the makings of good business.
Yeah, ARR definitely a popular metric. And just one more question around the product, kind of post sale success. Is this a self service onboarding? They integrate, say, CRM data and on their way, or is there any professional services involved in getting your customers up and running?
We're providing, but not charging for professional services at this point. And I would say that they don't need it, but I think there's a value to white gloving early customers, right? To make sure they're successful. Could you use our software, sign up, set it all up, get yourself up and running? Probably, and in most cases, yes, but I don't want to lose those, rare instances where they struggle to understand something and then get frustrated with our software if we can spend a little bit of time, white gloving it. Yeah. Other
Okay,
companies are
yeah,
different. Just like on the metric side, it might be engagement that is really important to people. A
yeah,
lot of it depends on things like price point, other things, but I'd rather, and we have capital that we can afford to invest a little bit in the white gloving, helping people, guiding them through that instance, helping them take a spreadsheet model and just putting it in our system so they're ready to go, right? Like, so they have last year's data and they can see, oh, if I had known this, I would have done XYZ. And that XYZ might have meant a couple 100,000 or another million or $2 million to me. So being able to like walk through past data and 2020 hindsight is kind of cool too.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if we can help people see that and see how they can use our system, and it requires a couple hours of our time, I think that's worth it. And it's really easy for us to get people up and running. I mean, we can get it, their old data up in like 20, 30 minutes and then walk them through it. So
yeah. That's great. And Eric, really appreciate your time as we wrap up today. Tell us what's coming up next that's new and exciting for Revcast.
my word is more. We have a lot to do, right?
More and more and more.
Yeah, I mean, I think in particular, more customers, we're just starting to sell. So I'm like excited about doing that. But also building community and content. We have a blog. Jeff writes a lot. We're trying to get more external people, experts in the space writing for our blog. We're going to expand that into podcasts. We really think there's an opportunity to deliver a community built by Rev Ops people for Rev Ops people. There's a lot of people out there that kind of are in the Rev Ops space, but sell to the CRO. And we think like our primary buyer in the long term is, and our who we really help day in, day out is Rev Ops, right? They're our core user, they're our core champion. And I think we can do more to build community and content for them. And then, we're primarily still, if you look at it from a headcount perspective, very product heavy. And by that, I mean engineering, design, product management heavy. So we're building a lot on the product side. There's like a huge, as you can imagine, there's a huge scope of stuff we can do to expand our offering, where we really think we can be, the platform that drives your revenue achievement, right? That makes sure that not only you hit your number or raise the probability you're going to hit your number a large degree, but also helps you understand where you could exceed, your number. Revenue makes the world go around, I guess.
Oh yeah, and I love that because I mean, compared to my finance world where we have an accounting system and the kind of that next step is FP&A software makes your life so much easier, forecasting analytics, kind of same thing. Hey, I got a CRM system now. All right, we need yeah, revenue planning. So yeah, I love that. So Eric, really appreciate your time and sharing your experience today. If listeners would like to learn more about Revcast, where should we send them online?
I mean, they can go to our website, www.revcast.com, revcast.com. You can sign up for a demo there. In fact, I mean, if they mention that they saw this on the podcast, we'll send them something, maybe apparel or hoodie hat, or if they want, like, we'll send a gift card for lunch. I'd love to see some demos come out of the this podcast experience. That would be great. Yeah, it'd be
Y-
fun. If we could get to 100, I'll do something special. I don't know what that
Okay.
is. I don't know.
Okay.
This is on the
All right.
spur of the moment thought here, but we'll do something special if from this we get to 100 demos. That'd be pretty sweet. I'd be super excited.
Yeah,
So,
that would be awesome. No, I don't think anyone's going to complain about getting 100 demos. So yeah, I love that.
yeah,
So
no. If we can get there, what would we should do something cool, like give away a MacBook or a trip to Aspen. I don't know, something cool.
yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, Aspen. I'm in Colorado. Aspen's super expensive, so I think people would appreciate that. So, but all right. Well, if you'd like to learn more about Eric and what they're doing at Revcast, check out Revcast, REVCAST.com to learn more and sign up for a demo. We're going to push those demos when the podcast launches. So, yeah, appreciate you sharing your time and experience today.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone has any questions, I mean, I'm always happy to talk to Rev Ops people. I've gotten so deep in this space. It's been fun. And similar with Jeff. So, I mean, shoot me an email. It's just eric@revcast.com. So happy to
All right.
chat.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, take advantage of that. Email Eric, Eric at revcast.com. So perfect. Again, Eric, appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks, Ben. I greatly enjoyed this.